Hello, my name is Daniel, and for the last 2.5 years I have been the proud owner of a Vango Voyager 400 tent, and this is my long-term review. And the Voyager 400 comes in this very spacious bag. It is a 2-pole tunnel tent, and I'll just put it up and we can see how quickly I can get this tent up. So I'll just show you some of the features from the outside. You have your ventilation in here, which can be closed off or left open. You have mesh on the top to allow the air in, get a good airflow in here. The guide ropes, 1, 2, 3 on each side, plus 1 at the rear. You have ventilation at the back, which again can be closed off by putting the guide rope tighter down. You have the poles go into the inner sleeve. They're very easy to push through. Okay, so this tent does have a porch. It's fairly small, but there is a porch in there. I'll show you that now. You can tie the door at the top with the bungees. And you have an inner door. So the porch area is quite narrow. It's fine for putting a bag, your shoes, walking poles, even your rubbish bag in there, but it's not quite wide enough to, say, put in a chair and to sit in there. So I'll just show you how wide it is here. This is the width. It's fairly wide at the base, but you can see the sloping front section means it's not really wide enough to get a chair in there. Also, there are 2 versions of this tent. You have the pre-year 2020 tent and tents that were made after the year 2020, like this one. Now, if you see one on sale, perhaps a second-hand one, and the front porch area is sealed, that means you can't see daylight by the floor on the porch. That's the older version. You can see the porch area here is not sealed, it's not joined up. That, I think, is the only difference between the 2 versions. Okay, so inside the tent, you've got pockets on either side. Put in mobile phone, wallet, valuables in. The same on the other side. At the rear of the tent, we have this huge mesh area, which is obviously designed to let the air flow in. And at the front, if I do the zip up, you see here, there's another one. If you're feeling a bit warm, that will keep the flies out, but will allow the airflow to come through. There are also a couple of loops, one at each end for hanging your lantern. And as for space, well, I'm 6'2". Well, I'm lying down, my head's a few inches short of this, and my feet are a couple of inches short of the other end of the tent. 6'2". If I can lie in here comfortably, there's a good chance that you can too. Now, as for the width, well, this is a four-man tent. In the real world, I think this tent is great for 2 people. You've got enough space for your bags, your shoes, your food, a cooler box, and so forth. You can easily fit 2 people side by side in here. Now, I use this on my own. I'm a solo camper, and I have plenty and plenty of room in here. Also, I can get changed in here. It's not a drama to get changed in this tent. There's still quite a bit of headroom in here. If you see me sitting up like this, I can read a book, get changed, have my lunch in here, no problem at all. I'm nowhere near the roof. Now, I really like this tent. I've had it for 2.5 years, and I've used it dozens and dozens and dozens of times. But there are just a couple of things that could be improved with this tent. Number 1 is the colour. You can see this is a really bright blue colour. This is not a tent that you want to use wild camping, because you're going to stick out like a sore thumb. Also, it gets very bright in here in the morning. Height of summer, 5:30 in the morning, I'm waking up because it's really bright. Number two, as I mentioned, the porch is a little bit narrower. A couple of times I've been out and it's been really warm and I thought I'd really like to sit in the shade, but it's too hot in the tent. Don't want to be in the sun outside. How nice it would be to just have a porch which is maybe just a foot wider, so I could put a chair in there and read a book and get in a little bit of shelter, maybe even get away from the wind without having to go in the tent. As I've already mentioned, the porch is quite narrow on this tent. Number three, the weight. This weighs in at 5 kilos. That's quite a heavy tent. This is not a lightweight tent. Yes, it's very durable, it's very tough. I've put it through its paces over the years, but it's certainly not a lightweight tent. So if you're having to walk any sort of distance in to pitch your tent, you'll find that this tent might be a little bit too heavy for you. Okay, you do need to be aware that when you have a tunnel tent, which just has poles parallel to each other, you will find it does rattle around a little bit in the wind. If you had a pole cross bracing from one corner to the other, that would make it more rigid. It doesn't have this. It's absolutely fine. I've used this on really, really windy nights when it's been howling, but it does rattle around a little bit because you just have those two poles parallel to each other. Okay, so here's a few things that I really like about this tent. Number one, it's huge. It's absolutely massive in that. I don't think I have ever felt that I'm in a small tent in there. It's usually only me in there. I have had two people in there. I've never found it cramped in there at all. Number two, it's really easy to pitch. Just two poles parallel to each other. One is longer than the other. Put the longest one at the front to make the door nice and big and the open area in there as you go in. That's it. Two poles and then just peg it in. It's really, really easy. This tent is pitched outer layer first, which means the inner layer doesn't get wet. So if it's raining, if there's a bit of mist, you pitch the outer layer first, then you go in and you pitch the inner layer. That's much better than those tents where you have to pitch the inner layer first, you get wet and then you throw the tarp over the top. On those ones you may find the inside of the tent gets very wet. That's not going to happen with the Voyager 400. You pitch the outside first. Okay, next up, packing this tent away could not be easier because you can leave it hanging. See this inner layer? You don't need to take that out. You can leave this hanging. And all you do is take the poles out, take the pegs out, and just fold it up and put it in the bag. And the next time you come out, you don't have to pitch the outer layer first and the inner layer, you just put the poles in and pop it up. Okay, this tent is really waterproof. I've been out mostly into mountainous regions, howling wind and pouring down with rain. I've never had a single drop make its way into the tent. So it's rated as 3000 hydrostatic head. That is more than enough. In this tent, it's never been a problem. The rain has never come into the tent. I will also add that I've never had any problems with excess condensation. This is generally a very well ventilated tent. Okay, as for wear and tear on this tent, I did puncture a little hole in the ground sheet about a year after I got it. That was me not being careful, putting it down over a stone and then putting weight on it. Apart from that, there's no damage and no wear and tear to report. Apart from that tiny little hole, nothing is broken, nothing is torn. I would say it's nearly as good as new. A little bit of sunburn on the top, a little bit of discoloration, but that's about it. Now I really hope that you found this honest review of the Voyager 400 tent helpful. If you have, do hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel as well. I do all sorts of things from hiking to scrambling to camping. You'll find all of it on my channel. Again, thank you for your time and thanks for watching. Now that was really quick and really easy to put away.